Hello. How are you? I'm like cleaning off my pants. Well, I didn't take a nap tonight, but the reason why is because I slept the entire day. I must have needed it. I don't know. This morning Alex left for work really early, and I got up, and I had my alarm set for 11-ish, I think. And so I can't remember, but anyway, my two alarms set, my phone and my alarm that I have to get up and turn off. And so I had to give PB his medicine, and so I took the dogs out. And then PB now, his new thing with the medicine is, as soon as he comes inside, I'm like, do you guys want a treat? And he just hightails it upstairs. He's like, he doesn't, now he thinks treats are medicine that has to be forced upon him. It's kind of sad. I went and bought a whole bunch of treats today because I was like, I'm not going to have my dog miss out on treats because he thinks that it's always medicine. So I had the medicine already. I had it rolled up into cheese. So then I had to go upstairs, and he just kept on going like this with his mouth at me. And so finally it's sad, and I had to pill him, which means you open his mouth and then you put it inside. And it was very similar to what I was talking about last night. And today he was just sitting on the bed, and he really, really fought me on the first one. He almost bit me hard. He snapped at me. And so finally I was like, PB, I said, you have to take your medicine. And I opened his mouth, and then I put it in there, and I just held it down. And afterwards he just looked at me with the saddest eyes. And I had the other two, and I picked up the other one, and he just ate the last two. He didn't fight me on it at all. And I was like, good boy, so Alex gave him his medicine tonight. He said he took it. There was no fight. He didn't have to pill him. He just gave it to him in the cheese, and he took it like that. So I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to fight us anymore for it. Maybe he will just take the cheese from now on. I hope. And then we had a little talk in the bed, because that's what I do, even though I know he probably doesn't understand. You guys are like, he probably doesn't understand? Well, I like to think that dogs sometimes understand things. So anyway, I said to him, I said, PP, I said, you have to take your medicine. It's helping with your cough. You're not coughing as bad as you used to. It's going to keep you alive longer. We need you to take your medicine. And then he rolled over on his back and acted foolish. So anyway, let's see. Oh, so that's what I did. Well, then that whole process took a half an hour, and it was early. It was earlier than when my alarms were set. But when I got up, I was like, well, I'll just get up and stay up now. So I turned my alarms off. Well, then when I lay down on the bed, because I was talking to PP and Boo and Tucker were up there, and they had laid back down, and they were on the bed, and I was like, okay, you guys, I'm gonna lay down for a half an hour more. Well, I assumed, now mind you, okay, this is at 10:15, 10:30. I thought my alarms were still set. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, anyway, I woke up, you guys. It was so late in the afternoon. It was 3:30. I woke up. I was like, oh my God, this whole day is wasted. I have wasted this whole day because I had nothing to do today. But I had a lot of things that I wanted to do. I wanted to work on my merch shop and get it up. I wanted to make a bunch of videos to have them pre-filmed for our trip. I had a lot of things I wanted to do today. So I was like, oh, because tomorrow I have meetings from 2 to 4. Then I have counseling at 7 with Alex. And I've just got a lot of stuff to do. So, but anyway, it turned out to be a great day anyway. I went and ran some errands. I got coffee. Well, I thought I brought my coffee with me, but I guess I didn't. I ran my errands, and then I came home, and then I filmed videos, but I didn't film any extras. I didn't even get my booktube video up today because I forgot that I had to render the video before I posted it, and so it's actually uploading as we speak right now. I'm going to post it tomorrow. It's a book haul video. And then my nose is driving me crazy, and I don't even know why. It's I think allergy season in Indiana has hit. So I filmed the videos. Then Alex was like, he called me. He was like, do you want to do something for dinner? And he goes, I'm getting ready to get off work. And I said, oh, this was before I started my videos. And I was like, no. I said, I've got to make these videos. I've been running late. I got all my stuff done late. He goes, okay. He goes, well, I can go out to dinner, because with his friend that he works with, he was like, with her, if it would be easier. And I was like, yeah, why don't you go do that? Because then you won't have to just sit in the bedroom while I film the videos. I always feel bad having him do that anyway. And like the only days he has to do that is really on Sundays. So he went out to dinner with his friend. They went to this Stone place. I don't know. It's a nice restaurant. He had like steak and mashed potatoes. Stonegate or Stone Yard or something. Stone something. I don't know. But anyway, and Stone Mill. It doesn't matter. So then I did that, and then I did a live stream tonight. I had so much fun doing a live stream. I hadn't done a live stream since, like, it's been like 9 days. It was like a week ago Friday, and I had a really good time. It was really fun. So you guys should join us, so you should join us for live streams if you don't. I'm going to try to do them every night between now and when I leave for Florida, because I'll do some in Florida, but I don't know, I won't do them consistently probably, because I'll be gone. So yeah, so check those out, and they're always a good time. And let's see. So that was that. Okay, so I have to tell you guys, part of why I stayed up so late last night was I got home and I was like uploading stuff, and I was looking on Netflix to try to find a new documentary to watch. Okay, well, they had released this Netflix original. It just came out, called Incarcerated Girls. And I was like reading it, and it said, it made it seem like it was like a women's jail. It didn't say anything about the city. I don't think it did. It didn't say anything about the city or anything on there. It said like this women's jail and blah, 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 whatever. And so I was like, oh, this looks really interesting. This is kind of like Orange is the New Black or like Wentworth, but real, right? So I go to watch it. You guys, it's about Madison Juvenile Correction Facility in Indiana, okay? Which didn't exist when I worked in treatment. It was a different correctional facility. It was called Indiana Girls School. But if you guys want to see what I used to do back in the day, similar to it, I worked in a residential treatment facility. And this is a little harsher, but it's very similar. Go check it out, you guys. It is so good. It follows like 5 girls that are in this correctional facility that are all under the ages of 18. And these are the kind of girls, exactly the kind of girls that I used to work with. In fact, 2 of them, girls that I still know to this day, that watch my YouTube videos and stuff, like, I called them immediately and I was like, you have to watch this. This will so remind you of when you were in treatment. It is like identical. A lot of the same rules. Like, we used to do levels, and on the show they do shirts. This road is like pothole central, my God. They do like shirts, like first they wear purple and then they get burgundy if they've like gotten to a certain level. And so it's really, really interesting, you guys. And the other thing is, if you are from around the world and, you know, like Annie Z in Australia, or, you know, Tia, if she watches my vlogs, or Autumn in New Jersey, and you want to see what Indiana really looks like, they show when these girls, I've only watched 2 episodes, but they show when these girls go back to their homes. And like the one girl that gets out, she lives in northern Indiana, but it looks very similar to where I live too. She lives in like, so she lives in Lake County, which is called the Region, and it's like northern. It's up by Chicago. It's by Gary is what it's by, like where the Jacksons are from and stuff like that. And but when you see like the towns and stuff that they show, that is exactly what Indiana, I mean, Madison, Indiana, where this whole thing takes place, is like an hour and a half from where I live, like door to door. I mean, I could drive there and be at this correctional facility in like an hour and a half. And God, I struggled so hard watching this show though, because, okay, so I at times, like my job was to train people to work in facility, like to work in a residential facility. And so these guards that work in these facilities are doing so many things that I did not agree with. Like, there's this one scene, and this one girl, her name is Chrissy, and she's been there for 2 years, and it's so interesting when you watch it, because, like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, none of the counselors really know how to address stuff, and I'm like, how have they worked in these facilities for so long and they know so little? I don't know. So this Chrissy girl, she has been there for 2 years, and she's 8 days away from her release. Now, a lot of these girls that are in there, like, their release is dependent on their behavior. So, like, it's very similar to how the program that I worked in was, which means kids were never sentenced to our program for, like, 6 months, okay? They were sentenced to, like, successful completion of the program. Well, successful completion of the program, if they were residential, was never less than 90 days. They were always there for a minimum of 90 days. But did we have kids that were released right around 90 days that were residential, that were court-ordered to treatment? Absolutely. But did we have kids that were there for 2 years? Absolutely, because they just could not get their shit together. And there is a fellow YouTuber out there that people know that I'm very close with her family, and anyway, she was one of those girls, and we've thought about doing a video a lot together, because she's talked very openly on her channel about me being her counselor back in the day, and I was basically, like, in charge of her every move. And whenever I talked to her on the phone, we were just talking the other night, and it's hard because a lot of people are like, I don't think they really understand our relationship. Like, I would consider us friends today, but I think to some degree I'll always be like a mentor in her life. And so, like, she gets real messy with shit, and I'll call her up and I'll be like, I don't like this. Like, you know, I know that you're 30, I'm not your counselor, but, like, I don't like what you're doing. Like, you need to correct this behavior, you know? And she's like, I know. And it's so funny because in some ways it's like we still have that relationship from when, you know, she was 16 years old. And she trusts me, but she doesn't change a lot of her behaviors, and hell, she didn't back then, so I don't expect her to now. But I can still try to be a good role model, you know? I can still try to say, hey, listen, let's take a look at this, and, you know, whatever. But she's talked real openly in live streams and stuff about how she ended up having to be there for a really long time because she just kind of couldn't get her shit together, and that's the truth. I don't really remember it that way, but so anyway, some of the things that these guards do, though, like, just I don't like. Like, this Chrissy girl, she's getting out in 8 days, right? She's been there for 2 years. When she came in, she was a fighter. She was just loudmouth. These girls, like, they cuss. Like, I mean, you think I cuss? Like, these girls, their mouths are like, I don't know. When I watched this, I was like, oh my God, I want to work at this correctional facility. I want to tell these guards what they are doing wrong. I was like, ugh. So anyway, this one guard, it's in the first episode if you watch it. It's called Girls Incarcerated. Girls Incarcerated. Write it down. I'll say it again in a little bit in case you miss it. And it's on Netflix. So, you can tell she's scared to leave. She's an institutionalized, okay? I used to deal with this with girls all the time, which is why we did home passes and we transitioned them slowly home. They haven't been out in the real world forever. Hell, this one girl gets out and, like, immediately takes to the streets. You see it. They show it in the first episode. So anyway, this Chrissy girl is like, you can tell she's terrified to get out, right? I mean, she doesn't say that, but she doesn't know anything else. So she's been there since she was 16, 15 years old, you know? Well, she's got this burgundy shirt on because she's so proud that she made it to the burgundy level. And her behavior, something has happened where she's, like, lost her burgundy privileges, and so she has to put on her purple shirt. Well, this guard comes into the day room, and she's like, and she's, like, joking with her at first, and she's kind of, like, poking her, which I don't care for that shit at all anyway, with people that interact with any kind of, like, mental health or pain. It's like, I remember back in the day, I had a kid that I got as a transfer from the psych unit, and he had anger issues, and they would make him see how far he could do those Jenga games. And he told me that whenever he would get it to a certain point, that one of the techs would walk by and just hit it all down. And later, they told his mom that it was to test his anger. And like I said to his mom, I asked her, I said, is that true? Did they really? And she's like, yeah. She's like, the counselor told me that they were trying to, like, you know, moderate his anger, and so they wanted to test it. I think that is so sick, okay? That somebody would play with somebody's emotions like that. And they're, you know, and we're not even talking about emotions, we're talking about personality disorders and things like that. It's just so sick. So this guard keeps on going and going and going and going for this Chrissy girl, right? She knows she's going to explode. And the Chrissy girl is saying to her, you need to give me some space, okay? I'm not giving you the shirt. I'm not giving you the shirt. And the guard's like, we're going to take that shirt from you. If you don't give it to us, we're going to take it from you. Yes, we will. Don't tell me what to do. I'm the one that has the power here. She engages in this power struggle that is so sick. I have never seen a power struggle like this, okay? And I worked in these facilities. If that had been me, I had been that guard supervisor, I would have come out there and I would have said, excuse me, can you come in here for a second? Why are you talking to her? First of all, why are you getting on her level? Okay, you don't do that. Second of all, you've just given away all your power. Like, this is a very, like, important parenting tool to know that when you engage in a power struggle with a teenager, you've lost, okay? So if you're a parent and you are trying to get that child to understand where you're coming from, or you're trying to engage in some kind of teaching message or communication, or get them to do what you want them to do as far as, like, you know, a parenting thing, like buy into a consequence. Once you've gotten into a power struggle with them, you've lost, okay? Period. It's like counseling 101. I learned that, like, on my first day of working in a treatment facility, long before I knew anything about it. So this guard's getting into it with her. At one point, the like warden guy, he does, like, call her in, but they don't show it. And she's like, well, she needs to be in her purple. She has purple shirt. It's just this ridiculous stuff, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm watching it and I'm like, why isn't anybody sitting down with this girl on the floor? I cannot believe my camera is already, the battery is, like, hot. I'm like, why isn't anybody sitting down on the floor with this girl saying to her, sweetie, like, are you scared to go home? What's going on with you? And why does this purple shirt mean so much to you? Because she says in there several times, I busted my ass to get this purple shirt. This purple shirt means so much to me, right? Well, let's meet her where she's at. You know, why does this purple shirt mean so much to you? You know, after 2 years, you busted your ass. You did a really great job. We're really proud of you. Okay, but what can we do for you to get your burgundy shirt back quicker? Okay? Because we're not going to fight you on this purple shirt. You know we're right. We know we're right. Let's not fight about it. Let's make it so that you can leave here in your burgundy shirt. What do we need to do so that when you walk out that door, you walk out that door as a proud, changed young lady in your burgundy? What do we need to do for that to happen? Because we're scared for you. Because right now, you're showing behaviors all over the place. I know you're scared. I'd be scared if I was you too. You don't know anything about that world. Why is it so difficult to talk to people like they're human beings? I don't understand it. I have taught this shit for years and years and years to blank faces staring back to me looking like I'm a fucking idiot. I don't get it, you know? And it's so sad when you see these girls in this correctional facility and all they want is to be treated like a human being. This one girl in there, she comes into it on the second episode. The only reason she has not been discharged, are you ready? Is because she has nobody to go home to. Her mom doesn't want her. Her dad doesn't want her. She doesn't talk to her mom or dad. I mean, her story is so horrific. She has nobody to go home to. So she has to basically live there till she's 18, and she's 15 years old, okay? So they've got this young counselor, and they all love this young counselor. And why do they love her? Because she cares about him. She loves him, and she makes this care package together for this girl, and she brings her deodorant and explains to her that, honey, you need to wash yourself and wear this deodorant because you don't smell so good. Oh, God, the camera just shut off. I had to let my camera cool down, so I don't even know what I was talking about. I think I was talking about the younger counselor, because it just shut off because of the heat. It's because underneath here it gets so hot because it's right on top of my, like, heater is why it gets Yeah, but you guys should check out the show. It's called Incarcerated Girls. It's fantastic. And the other thing that you guys might find interesting, since so many people contact me about this, is the Shanda Shear murder case. So Shanda Shear, I've talked about this on here before. My dad used to say to me, I always talked uphill. Oh my God, the train. Peter, turn around. I don't want to hit the train. So Shanda Shear was I think she was a 12 or 14-year-old girl, 14 maybe, that was killed by these girls. And all of the murderers, I think, are out now. This Melinda girl might be the only one that's not still out of jail and out of prison. They are in Indiana Women's Prison. It took place in prison. If you guys want to read about it, the book is called Cruel Sacrifice that I read. There's a couple books about it, but Cruel Sacrifice by Aphrodite Jones is probably the best one. And there's all kinds of documentaries on YouTube that you can look up. It's Shanda Shear, and it's Sharer. And, okay, what's really interesting is the murder took place in Madison, Indiana. The girls were from Madison, Indiana, which is where the Madison Correctional Facility is at. That's in the show. They don't talk about Shanda Shear, obviously, but if you're interested in knowing more about what Madison, Indiana looks like, you know, you can go check that out, I guess, and you'll see if you're interested in what it looks like. The one thing they don't talk about, or they show like so much of the city, they kind of show the city as it like starts, but is that Madison is actually on the water. It's on the Ohio River, I think, and they have like a big regatta there every year. It's supposed to be like really pretty. But what's interesting about watching this show is that these are the kind of girls that we would get into treatment. So what would happen was I would go to like Indiana Girls School, which there were like, at the time that I worked in treatment, there were like 2 of them. This one's new, and they were putting this program together when I worked in treatment, so I don't think this one existed. I may be wrong, but I don't think it did, because we never got any girls from Madison. I think actually it might have said something about it on the Netflix thing, because I wanted to watch it because they said, because there's a women's prison in Madison. There's what's it called? A low security prison in Madison. And I've actually, because of recovery, I've known women that have gone there, and they're like, oh, it's a cakewalk. They always say that, it's a cakewalk. And so anyway, I thought that's what it was. I didn't know there was a juvenile correctional facility there. I remember them talking about building one in southern Indiana, but I don't remember that. There was one north, and then there was one in Indianapolis, and that was Indiana Girls School. And man, that place was tough as nails. You did not want to get sent there if you were a girl. And when you walked in, they would say, "Welcome to Little Girls Prison." That's what they would say. Can you imagine? So anyway, but I would go out to these facilities and I would do assessments and evaluations, and then I would determine if these girls, once they had completed that program, were appropriate for coming to our facility. And the things that would make them appropriate were like, well, first of all, if their charges were for substance abuse cases. I think that actually, because we had like one murderer in treatment, and she came from Indiana Girls School. She was a real different girl. I remember her. And she and like 2 of her friends had like murdered this old lady. They had like, it was a weird case. But anyway, God, I wonder what happened to her. Anyway, she ended up going to prison after she left treatment. She had to like successfully complete treatment so that she could go to prison. Like she was waiting. I think it was like they were waiting for her to turn 18 or something like that. I can't remember, but anyway, but like we would go there and then we would evaluate like if they really did have a substance abuse issue, chemical dependency issue, if they were appropriate for long-term treatment, and also whether or not they were a flight risk, because we were not a lockdown facility. So like kids could just they couldn't just walk out. We had like double doors that were locked and alarm systems on the doors and things like that, but like anybody could just walk out the back door and run. We would call security on them, and security usually like chased them down or whatever. We had a couple kids that ran and got away. Not many, but a couple. And just really sad stuff happened. I can remember this one time, this girl, she was there forever. And she was a crack addict, and she was prostituting, and this was like, God, my first couple years there. And she was drinking. And we were like on some kind of rec outing. I can't remember where we were. And she like just took off. And the thing was, like, if you had like one staff member on a rec outing, like with like 6 kids, you couldn't, I can't remember what the state rule is, but you're allowed, it's like one staff member to so many kids. I think it's 8 kids, 12 kids maybe. But you can't just walk away. So if somebody runs, the only thing you can do is call it in on your cell phone and like hope, you know, that somebody tracks them down. Well, they didn't. And she ended up, they found her in a hotel room. I mean, she was alive, and she had been smoking crack, and she was with all these guys, and it was really sad, and she ended up going to prison, and violating her parole and going to prison. I think she was 18 when she was there. That's why she violated her parole, but took me back watching this show. I got real heated watching it. Because I supervised a lot of those counselors back in the day, and man, I wouldn't have dealt with how some of these guards were treating these kids. No, man, I would have been like, this is not okay. I'm not fine with this. This is not how you talk to these kids. But, you know, they do different things in different places, you know. It's maximum security correctional facility for juveniles, and it's sad to think that in our society that exists. But it does. I mean, you know, when I worked in treatment, I would do anything possible to have to not send kids like back to like girls' school, boys' school. We had this place in Indianapolis or Indiana called MRDC, and it was called the Muncie detention center, something, residential detention center, and they were hands-on. And I mean, I heard they would do stuff like just push kids into walls and stuff that like would lip off, and like if they were like, they would talk out of hand, you know. And so I like did not ever want to be part of sending them back, but at the same time, you know, I never like, and we didn't have to. Most of the kids that we had were successful at some point. It would take them a long time to get out of there. But a lot of times if they just would never get it, it was like, you know, they had to be sent back to boys' school, girls' school, or, you know, detention centers or whatever, because like their counties would be like, okay, we've paid for a year. We're not paying for any more treatment for them. You know, like they're just pissing it away. They're not taking it seriously. This is their opportunity to change. They don't want to change. Their parents aren't participating, you know, like, because that was like a big deal. Like, what would happen is for payment purposes, the kids would be warded to the state, and so then the state would pay for treatment, but the parents would have to participate in the family program, right? Well, a lot of these parents would refuse to participate, and it was real sad. You would find out, like, you know, they were from real small towns, most of them country kids, and so you would just assume that maybe a lot of them didn't have a lot of money, but then when you'd find out is that these parents, like, drove these, like, fully loaded pickup trucks and went to the casino every weekend, and they had a shit ton of money, and they traveled a lot, and, you know, like, they were, like, foremen at, you know, factories, and they made, like, each, like, mom and dad both made, like, $150 a year or $100 a year or whatever, you know, and they had worked there forever, and it was sad. And they would live in these towns where these kids, like, basically, you know, they were given everything, and it was just like these towns that were saturated with methamphetamine and, you know, pills and opiates, and oh my God, pills were just such a big deal. Xanax, like all these kids would talk about Xanny bars. I mean, Xanax was such a huge deal when I worked in treatment, and then Oxycontin and oxycodone and Percocets. Oh my God, kids talked about Percocets constantly. Fentanyl wasn't such a big deal when I worked there. That was like kind of the tail end. Heroin hadn't really started yet. Indiana was late to the game with heroin and is now completely saturated at least a death or two a week I hear about in the rooms of 12-step programs about somebody dying from a heroin overdose. I mean, it's everywhere. It is absolutely everywhere. And that just wasn't the case back in the day when I got sober, when I worked in treatment. I just didn't hear of that many heroin addicts. You know, Heroin Anonymous is one of the biggest 12-step programs in Indianapolis right now. It's so sad. I mean, the heroin epidemic in our country, the fact that we're not dealing with it, it just breaks my heart. It just, and you know, the thing is like, I mean, with any drug or alcohol or whatever, it takes you right away. But I think even more so with heroin. And I feel so blessed that I never started it. And honest to God, probably the only reason I didn't was because I wasn't afraid of needles. That wasn't why. Because I had shot ketamine before. But the only reason was because it was never offered to me. And typically what I hear that kids do, you know, or people that start using is, you know, they start, you know, eating like Oxycontin, and then they start snorting it. And then they'll have a friend that'll be like, hey, let me shoot you up. And then they shoot them up. And then they go to heroin, like from Oxycontin to heroin real quick. And, or Suboxone. Now a lot of people are abusing Suboxone. And then before they know it, that's their life. And, you know, you don't meet a lot of 50-year-old junkies that have been using dope for 30 years. You just don't. And that's the sad reality of heroin in our country. I don't know, I was watching this documentary last night. It was like, the majority of the kids that we would have in treatment, I didn't care if they were there 2 years. You know, they'd get out and they weren't any more successful than when they had walked in, except for maybe they had their high school degree, or, you know, the majority of them. And it made me sad. I don't think that teenagers are supposed to live in a residential facility. You know, I just don't. And, I can remember, like, I would work late on Friday nights sometimes, and I can remember, like, right around the corner from where our facility was, there was a high school, and, on Friday nights they would have football games. And so I would drive and I would go get, like, if I was going to stay late, because I was, like, working, you know. Sometimes if I didn't have anything to do on a Friday night, so that I could leave early on Saturday, because I work Saturdays 8 to 4:30, but if I wanted to come in and like leave at noon or 11:30 or 10 and just run group, I would stay late on Friday nights and just get a lot of paperwork done. Because on Friday nights were easy nights in treatment, because the kids would go to a meeting and then they would watch a movie. They would have rec night, and the kids that are on certain levels would get to go out and they would have a recreational activity. Like they would go like, you know, bowling, or they would go like see a movie, or they would do something that was recreational, or they would go to a meeting. And no, Friday nights were rec nights, so they would always go do a recreational activity. And so I would stay there, but then I would go to like the gas station and I would like, you know, get like a Dr. Pepper or something at the gas station. And I can remember like seeing the kids driving down the street with the streamers on their cars for the football games, or going through Burger King, because there was a Burger King right there, and they were all of them having fun and laughing. And I was like, you know, that's what these kids are supposed to be doing. You know, these kids are supposed to be kids. They're supposed to be driving around, you know, dating, going to football games, getting into trouble that's not too bad. You know, this isn't what they're supposed to be doing. And maybe I feel a little bit like that because my high school experience was similar to that too. I was always in and out of trouble, you know? And it was funny because last weekend I was at Tanya's. I can't remember when it was, but I was leaving and I stopped at the gas station on the way home to get a bottle of water. I think it was before I was going to do my vlog, actually. And it was like Friday night. What did I do last weekend? I can't remember. But anyway, well, Thursday night we went. I don't remember, but it was one night last weekend. And it was like 11:30, 11:45. and I stopped at the gas station, and there was like this kid, and he was like filling the gas in his car, and he was like with this like other guy and this girl, and they were all probably 16, and they were pretty clean cut looking, you know, and I was like, man, I could have really enjoyed my youth, like, you know, like if I had just been a good kid, if I had just done what I was supposed to do, if I had just, you know, I would have ended up. It's funny because, like, as I'm saying this to you, like, in my head, I'm thinking something different, so I have to say that first. Like, I believe the journey that I have been on in my life, I was supposed to be on, okay? That's what I believe. I think that it took me where I was supposed to be to end me up where I'm at now. I don't think that my life would look like it does today had I not been on the journey that I went on. And I don't regret anything that happened in my life, but sometimes I wonder, like, who keeps on texting me? But sometimes I wonder what would have happened, like, if I had, you know, like, been a good kid in high school, gone to college, gone to a campus, you know, like, come out in college, you know, like, had a boyfriend in college, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like, that just wasn't my story, you know? Come home for holidays, gone to bonfires in high school, you know, maybe had a beer, been home on time for curfew, did my homework, you know, I didn't do any of that. I don't remember ever doing homework in high school. Ever. Like, I mean, always last minute if I had anything that was due. And always, like, I was always home on time for curfew, but I don't honestly remember having a curfew. Like, I remember my dad, I didn't have a curfew. My mom, she had a curfew, but, like, I don't remember her ever knowing. I remember always sneaking in. Like, this is the kind of shit I did in high school. Are you ready? Okay, so one time, my friends and I don't know where we went. It was some sketch-ass bar. I don't even know how we got in there in high school, because I have to tell you, at 18, I mean, I looked 15 at 18. But we went in and to this thing, and this bar, and they were having like a tequila shot contest. I hate tequila. Well, we ended up winning this contest, and if you won it, you got this huge gallon of Jose Cuervo. And so I remember my friends dropping me off at my mom's front door, and we had this wood door that was like about that thick, this huge wood door, and I don't remember how I got in, but I remember crawling across the slate floor. We had these like church slate floors from the front door all the way to the kitchen, and I would like boom like that with this like Jose Cuervo, like boom, and then I would crawl, and then boom, and then I remember I got to the kitchen and I went like that and hurled the bottle up on the kitchen counter. And then, I mean, I was so sick, and then like I crawled back to the bathroom because the bathroom was right there, and I just puked and puked and puked and puked. And then at like 8 o'clock in the morning, it was like a Sunday morning, my mom getting ready for church, I heard her upstairs, and she was like, Peter, is that you? Did you sleep downstairs last night, sweetie? And I was like, yeah, Mom. And I remember I like got up real quick and like went and got that bottle of tequila and hid it. And I was like, that was a close one. I almost got caught, you know? And that was my life in high school, you know? That was, and it was alcohol more than it was drugs. Always, my first love was always alcohol. Always, always, always alcohol. And, but I mean, every weekend and even most of the weekdays, I drank. And when I was at my dad's house, I house sat a lot for my dad too in high school. My dad and my stepmom used to travel a lot when I was in high school, and so I would house sit for him for a week at a time. My junior and senior year, when I had a car and I could drive back and forth. And I would drink every night. I'd just sit there in the kitchen and make a gin and tonic or a vodka tonic or something like that, like I was just 35 years old. But sick. I look back on that and I'm like, that is so sick. And I had alcohol in my room. I had a water bed, and I used to keep it in the four corners of my water bed. I would hide it, and I called it the four corners of the earth. My friends used to think that was so funny. And I would sit on the edge of my bed, or the floor with my back against the bed and my TV like 2 feet in front of me, and I would watch a movie and just drink, like by myself, at 15 years old, at 14 years old, at 13 years old, at 12 years old. I did that, you know? Like, that's not right. Like, and you know, at 23 years, I've done a lot of work on that. But I don't know that I've sometimes ever really forgiven myself for that. But I'm not that person today, and I just think back on like 12 and 13-year-old Peter, you know, and 12 and 13-year-old Peter wasn't a whole lot different than 45-year-old Peter in some ways, you know, and the things that, the reading of the books and the watching of the TV shows and all that kind of stuff. And then to think that, you know, at the end of the night, I went upstairs to my room and got drunk. Like, I don't know, it's just sad to me, you know what I mean? I lived a very lonely existence, and it's weird to me when I think back on that like, that was my life, like, that's how I lived my life. Like, who lives that way? And that really not a lot of people knew. Like, my friends in high school and stuff, they knew that I drank the way that I did because they were worried about me too. I can remember, like, whenever I stayed at my dad's house, if I wasn't driving, none of my friends wanted to drive me home out to my dad's house because it was like it's like 25 minutes from where my mom lives, half an hour. So that means they would have to drive me, no matter what time it was, because my dad didn't care. They would have to drive. I mean, my dad knew that I was drinking, okay? Like, he didn't condone it, but he knew. And so that means they would have to drive me out there and then back. And in fact, I remember being at my friend's house one night, and we were like, I think seniors in high school, and her boyfriend, who she ended up marrying and divorcing, but he was like 3 or 4 years older than us. And so he bought us a bunch of alcohol, and I remember we got into a fight with him because we were like getting ready to leave and go somewhere. God, my nose is like driving me crazy. And we hadn't even really been drinking that much at that point. And so, like, we had paid all this money for this alcohol, and we were just gonna take it with us and like drink the next night. It was like a Friday night, and he goes, "No alcohol leaves this house." And I mean, obviously, because he had bought the alcohol, he didn't want to get busted for it. I mean, I understand now looking back on it, you know, and he thought we were all gonna stay there and sleep over. And I remember that, like, my friend got into a fight with him, and so we left. And I think we stayed down there and like got drunk. And then, like, when we left, because we were like, well, we're not gonna leave the alcohol here, so we might as well just drink. And I think we like went over into some sad corner and just drank by ourselves. And because I remember my one friend was like, she had like wine coolers and Boone's Farm, which is like in Purple Passion. Do you guys remember Purple Passion? Which was like fruit juice and Everclear. And it would get you real fucked up. And she was like, everything's berries. But anyway, my friends had to drive me home because I was so intoxicated. And I remember that they were like going down my mom's street, and I was like, no, not my mom's street, my dad's street. And they were like, you're at your dad's tonight? And I was like, yeah. And they ended up like, I think they just like took me to my mom's house. And that time I think I did get in trouble. I got in trouble a lot. There was a lot of times I got in trouble. And rightfully so, you know? And there were a lot of times that my parents just didn't know what to do with me, you know? Because the thing was that I always accepted my consequences really well. I remember, here, this is a bad trick, but I don't have a lot of 15-year-olds that watch my vlogs, I don't think. You want to know a good way to get through being grounded? First of all, if you're a parent out there, I do not believe in grounding, okay, at all. I believe in value-based consequences. That means that the punishment matches the crime, okay? So, for example, if you came home late on a Saturday, then you don't get to go out the next night, or you come home early the next night, or if you take down somebody's mailbox and you replace them, they don't teenagers don't learn other ways. So, you know, when they come home and you ground them for a month, they don't care. And the hole's dug so deep that they're like, fuck it. You know, like the hole's dug so deep, I'm grounded for a month, whatever. But here's what I would do. I didn't care, because I was going to sit at home and drink anyway, right? Whether I was, you know, going out with my friends or not, that didn't make that big of a deal to me. I was going to get my drink on. So I just didn't tell my friends. They would ask me, I wouldn't say I was grounded. I just said I didn't want to go. Because if they knew I was grounded, they'd bitch and moan, and they'd beg me to come out, and then I'd want to come out, and then I'd get in trouble on top of it. And then, you know, I'd say, like, so I played good boy. I'd sit at home with my mom and watch a movie, and then when she went to bed, I'd sit there and get drunk. You know, or vice versa at my dad's house. I just didn't complain about it. And I would do what I was told. I was really good. I was polite. I wasn't disrespectful. I mean, I had a mouth on me a little bit, but not ever with my dad. With my mom, I did at times. But only like when we got into it and she was drunk or fights or whatever. But my dad never. I'll never forget one time. I can't even remember how old I was. Late high school, 17, 18. And my dad, our house at my dad's house is built like this. Like, when you go in, the entryway is like right here with like this huge staircase and stuff. And then it's kitchen, dining room, entryway, this hallway, this long hallway, and then it goes to their master bedroom, is on the main floor. And then on the other side of that is like this huge like living room that like overlooks the lake and stuff like that. Well, we were in the kitchen, and I was standing by the door that goes to the dining room and then the entryway into the hallway. And my dad was standing up against the sink, and there was an island in the middle of it. And he said something to me, and I said, fuck you, or something like that. And he goes, and I'll never forget this, he turned like with that one eye, and he goes, what did you say to me? And I mean to tell you, he was around that island, and he chased me all the way down the hallway, and he had me up against the wall in the bedroom. Like, I mean, I was like this, and he goes, and he did not lay a hand on me, but he was like in my face, and he goes, don't you ever speak to me like that again. He goes, I have never spoken disrespectfully to you. He said, I will never speak disrespectfully to you. He goes, you don't ever speak to your father that way. And I've told this story on here, and I'm not going to relive it tonight, about the one time that I spoke really disrespectfully to my mom, and whew, she didn't let me forget that ever until the day she died. I mean, she did not. I don't even know then. That was one of the things I talked to her about that last night before she passed away. I mean, she was in a coma, but I still talked to her about it because she just always remembered it. That was horrible. You should never talk to your mother that way. You should never talk to anybody that way. You should never talk to, you know, my dad would say things to me like, you don't talk to women that way. You don't talk to your mother that way. You shouldn't talk to people that way. We just shouldn't talk to people disrespectfully. You know, I don't care what somebody does to us. They just don't, people don't deserve for us to be disrespectful to them. I don't think. Do you? Like, you know, like, and, you know, one of the things that was interesting to me in treatment was when I would have kids that would be really disrespectful to me, I would not bow down to that and be disrespectful to them. And one of the things I would say to them later is, you know, like, I've never been disrespectful to you. Like, why do you speak disrespectfully to me? And those were always the kids that would come full circle. And then later they would say, you know, you were really right. And, you know, you really taught me that. Because they would always say, well, I give respect when, like, you know, you earn respect from me when you give me respect first. And I always be like, all right, I'll give you respect. I mean, why shouldn't I? Like, you're a human being, you deserve respect. And then they would just be like shocked. Like, an adult would give them respect, you know? So, anyway, all of this from a documentary that I watched last night. Who knew? Bad Peter growing up. Those were the days, right? Now look at me. Bad Peter all grown up. I do wonder sometimes though what would have happened. You know, like, it's like, did you ever see the movie The Prince of Tides? And at the end of it, when he's going over that bridge, he says, if for every man there were two lives. You know, I kind of like, if you haven't seen The Prince of Tides, first of all, go get it today. Like, it is hands down one of my all-time favorite movies. But, you know, I think about that a lot. Like, you know, what would happen if we had two lives? And I don't know. I am almost at 30 minutes, so I'm going to get off here and take a break for a little bit. I may come back. I think I will, and say goodnight. So I'll see you then. Okay, so I wasn't actually sure I was going to get back on here. I pulled into the Meyer parking lot because I wanted to watch the end of the second episode of that girls incarcerated, and I almost can't even talk about it. It got me so emotional. And I haven't even gotten emotional in a vlog in a really long time, but I guess it's, I don't know, I was going to say it's silly. It's not silly, but like, there's this scene in it. You guys have to watch it. It's so fantastic. There's this scene in it, and this counselor that these girls all love, this younger counselor that's been there for 5 years, she's leaving to move to get her master's degree, and they sit down and they have this like last conversation with her. Like all of a sudden I just got like bombarded with all these memories of all these kids that I had worked with through the years, and all of the funerals that I had gone to. And we used to do these things called goodbye groups, where we would sit in a circle, and when the kids would graduate from the program, they would get a goodbye group, and we would pass this coin around. I don't know why I remembered this, but the coin said, to be of value to others, you must first be of value to yourself. I don't know why I'm like so emotional about this. It's like, it was such a huge part of my life. And I miss it so much sometimes, you know? You get like so, like, you become such a part of these people's lives. I guess in some way, like, I really never grieved leaving there. I don't know, you know, like, I mean, I like watershed, like tearing, like crying, like, I like watched the end of the episode and then I like drove away and I was like fine, and then I was like, she says in there, she says like, they show her back at her desk and she says, you know, like, I've really grown as a person. And it's like, there's so many kids, you know, that like, they're not kids anymore, they're 30 and, you know, 35 that I worked with, and I don't even know where 99% of them are anymore. I one time figured out that like, at any given time I had 12 kids on my caseload, you know, so I probably had over the course of a year 200 to 300 patients over 13 years. What's that? 2,000 to 3,000 patients that came through there. And it just like, I just can't imagine what my life would be like had I not like lived that, you know, played volleyball on Saturday mornings and had group therapy every day, you know, and danced in the hallways and learned rap songs and had family sessions that were super intense and sat on the floor, you know, with girls that just wanted to go home and have a boyfriend. Just all of it, you know, like, and for some reason I started thinking about like this and YouTube, you know, and I was like, I was talking on my Peterisms channel that the other day that like I don't do well with endings, and so when I was there, and I was working there, like, I thought I would retire from there. I thought I would be there forever, you know? Like, I just could never imagine myself not there. So I don't think that, like, I ever prepared myself for not working in treatment. And then you can say I went through McDonald's. You guys are like, why did you put this at the end of this vlog? Because I want to, I don't know, I guess I just want it recorded so that someday, you know, I can remember if I go back. And, but I didn't prepare for leaving there. I thought I would be there forever, you know, and it just kind of like boom, 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 things happened in a row. I hadn't been very happy there for 2 or 3 years because of the politics of the people that I worked with, but I loved what I did. And then somebody offered me an opportunity to help me go into private practice, and then my ex and I broke up, and it just, you know, it was like, it just seemed right to start making those changes at that time, and it was right. Like, it was the time for me to go. It really was. But like, I put my resignation in on December 23rd, and I left the last day of January. It just was like that. And or the last Thursday in January, whatever that ended up being. And I just remember that night, like, I was like watching this, and it was like, they were all like huddled around her, you know, like, and they were like every staff member that had ever left before got like a goodbye group, and I wasn't on great terms with my supervisor, and she just was like ready for me to go, and I was ready to go, and so like she was like, do you want anything special? And I was like, no. And she was like, you don't want a goodbye group? And I was like, I don't want a goodbye group, I just want to leave. And so I did. You know, I just boxed my stuff up and I took it out to my car during dinner, and I came back in and I ran family group. And then my supervisor and another counselor just walked off the unit. They didn't say anything to me. I didn't even see them again until my mom's funeral. I didn't talk to them again. And I was just talking to this girl the other night that was a patient of mine back in the day, and I was telling her this, and she was like, I cannot believe. She was like, Peter, she was like, you were that unit. Like, I don't think you understand. She was like, you were that unit. You were like the life source of that unit. And I just like walked away. Like no goodbyes. Like, I don't remember any of that. I don't remember, you know, like, there was like really no closure. And it's not like I could go back now and like do anything about it. I mean, it's like none of the same people that worked there then like work there now, like, and not like 2 of them do, and not in the same capacity. So it's like life's gone on, you know. It's like, and that's what happens. Life goes on. It's been over 10 years, you know, since I've been there. And I was thinking about like how weird it is that like, what kind of goodbye group would I have? It would have just been the patients that I had had for like the last, you know, 30 days to 6 months that I had been there, when I had been transitioning for 2 months anyway, you know, or a month, and out of that role. So it was like, it wouldn't have been like a goodbye group with like patients that had been there like 5 years before, 10 years before, you know. I was there 13 years, you know. 13 years. Nobody said goodbye. 13 years of my life. And it was fantastic, you know, it was really fantastic. It was heart-wrenching. It meant something. But it was the coolest job in the whole world. It was such a cool job. And so I was sitting here and I was thinking like to myself, you know, like, I got really sad. I was like, I'm sure there's going to be a day that I'll like walk away from YouTube. Like, I can't imagine doing YouTube for 30 years, you know, or 20 years, or, I mean, you know, like, will there be a day? Like, this is what was making me think it. It's like, I don't in my head consciously ever think about stopping YouTube. I mean, I've been doing it not even 2 years yet, right? So like, the idea of me stopping YouTube is like not on the forefront of my mind. But at the same time, it's like, this is gonna sound so corny where I go, you guys, so just bear with it, but I was like, that day probably will come, you know, when something changes in my life, whether it's, you know, 6 years down the road or 10 years down the road or whatever, you know, like, I am somebody that knows, like, when it's time. Like, I know that, you know, like, I don't like that about myself, but I do know, like, okay, it's time. Like, it's time to walk away from a good thing, or it's time to walk away and move on to something else. And the thing is that I don't ever know, I don't know what's going to happen in my future, you know, I just don't. And, I have absolutely no intentions of stopping this vlog or stopping my channel anytime soon. I'm only thinking about growing it more. I'm not thinking about stopping it. But I was like, I didn't realize how much I loved doing this, you know, because I sat there and I was like, I can't imagine that last video. This is the corny part, you know, like where I'm like signing off. I just can't imagine what that would be like. And then I realized, like, to some degree, this is where it pisses me off when people say I script these vlogs. I'm like, how do you script this shit? You know, like, hateful people that say that. But then I realized to, like, some degree that, like, this is so corny when I say this, but you guys are, like, my patients to some degree that I, like, worked with. You know, like, I have that same connection. And because you're like on the other side of this relationship that I have, you know, with what I'm doing and I'm putting my heart and soul into. And I don't want to ever walk away from that. I just don't. I don't want to walk away from anything else that means something to me. Like that. I just don't want to do it. And I mean, I have no plans. This is not a video of me going, well, I'm leaving YouTube. It's not like anything like that. But I think that one thing that's really hard is that when you get older, especially when you've gone through a lot of loss in your life, like I have, like with my mom, and like with a career, and like relationships and dogs, and you kind of know it's inevitable at some point, you know, that like one of my biggest fears is like, what happens if YouTube goes away? Like, where do I go? You know what I mean? Like, I'm so thankful for the platform of YouTube. People bitch and moan about YouTube all the time. I'm like, thank God for YouTube. If there wasn't YouTube, I couldn't do what I love. It's just like in my head, I got like really sad just sitting there thinking about like thanking everybody for like everything that YouTube had done for me, you know, like all of the comments I receive, all the wonderful comments, and all of the tweets and the snaps and the blue hearts, you know, like all of it. It's like that first day that I walked into the treatment facility to work there, like I had no idea, you know, like I had no idea this wonderful journey that I was walking into. I really didn't. I really just thought it was a job. And it wasn't about that at all. And it's the same thing with YouTube. It's like when I started this, like I had no idea that this is what it was going to turn into, you know, like it's just like the most amazing thing, and I love it. I love everything about it, and God, it's so weird, isn't it? That like movies and books and songs can just like reap emotion out of us. And it was just that brief like 10 seconds of seeing that woman, you know. And I so related to her. She was such an amazing counselor. If you watch it, you'll see what I'm talking about. She's just such an amazing counselor. And I so related to that moment of her sitting there. It's good to remember, you know, because it makes it real for me, and it's good to cry and get it out. And you know, I sometimes wonder, because that place has changed so much, and I don't just mean like the people have changed, I mean like the program that I was part of does not even exist now, and it was like cut up into 15 different parts or something, you know, and it's over here now and this over. I kind of like wonder, like, where would I even be if I was still there, you know, like what would I be doing, what capacity would I be working in? And so I think that like the weird thing is, for this period of time, while 5 or 6 of us all worked together, and all of the, you know, the patients that came through, their families, like, it was this really special moment in time that will like never exist again. And like, I think to some degree it was kind of like this period of innocence, you know. I don't know, maybe I just needed to grieve that place, and the show gave me the opportunity to do that. So I just wanted to get on here and talk about that for a little bit. So I'll be fine. I feel better after having talked about it. So anyway, I will let you guys go. I love you, and I will see you tomorrow.